Hey, it's Janine.
And hi, I'm Katie. We're back. It's been a while.
I know, good to be here.
It is. It is. So, what are we talking about today?
Fakers.
That's right.
That's with an A.
Fake famous and the movie versus authentic connections, creating authentic connections. And I know I saw the movie and I think I said to Janine, oh my God, you've got to watch this movie. Um, as we're starting out the podcast, it's been interesting just to see, want to grow a following. But do we really want to grow a following of people that aren't interested in what we have to say? No. For those of you who have not seen Fake Famous, it's an HBO documentary by this guy named Nick Bilton, and it was a sort of a social experiment. He did this. I thought it was interesting, the casting call, and all it said was, "Do you want to be famous?" And they had over 4,000 people that replied. So 4,000 people, yeah, I want to be famous, but famous for what? I guess it doesn't really matter, right? You're
And
just
at what cost? And at what cost? They don't care, right?
yeah, good point. No, 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 none of that. I guess everybody sort of wants to be Instagram famous. So I just thought it was interesting. They scaled it down to three final people, and they deliberately picked people that they thought they'd have a harder time making famous. And one gal who was sort of an actress trying to do her thing, and then one guy who was a real estate assistant, and then another guy. And I thought the other guy was really cool because he would make clothing, one of a kind clothing from the thrift store. So they were
Yeah.
like, the whole
Cycle, right?
recycle. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to ask you, Janine, have you
Yeah.
heard of that pink wall in LA? Is that a real place and like a real thing?
Yes, it is. And I'm not cool enough to have ever been there, but I kind of want to go up there now. And then I've been noticing though around places different walls like that. Now the interesting thing to me about that is it's literally just pink, bright like bubblegum Pepto-Bismol pink, right? For those that didn't watch the movie.
Right.
And but what I'm seeing around here are like sides of buildings with more like murals and but bright colors and but designed to have people stop and take pictures. I mean, even like the one that we did in Nashville with like the butterfly wings, right? But there's
Yes.
just more
Yes.
and more of that to help people like curate this life of cool just by
Mm-hmm.
standing against a wall, right? But the fascinating thing about that pink wall is that's all it is. It's not a famous location. It's not like something happened there. I still kind of don't get it, but evidently
Oh,
it's like the mentality of wanting to do something that other people are doing just because they're doing it.
well, so people are flying here from like England to take a
Right.
picture in front of a pink wall. And I thought, really? They're coming all that way for that? I mean, that's something that you could fake just about anywhere, in my opinion.
Right. Right.
Um,
Instead of spending 10 hours and
oh my,
$500 to get here, right?
oh my God,
Yeah.
crazy. So why are we talking about this today? I guess especially because we are starting a new venture with the blog, and I just was really fascinated by the fact that people really wanted to have all these followers, because the more followers you have, then brands will discover you and perhaps give you things, money, trips, whatever. In fact, it was funny that one girl from the show, she ended up getting to a place where she was really making some traction, and then it was the pandemic, so she had finally earned an all expense paid trip that she didn't get to take. So
Right. Yeah. I know, it's what was interesting to me is like it pulled back the curtain and showed you
yes.
just how fake it can all be and how easy it is to fake it. And they're not saying that everybody fakes it. I mean, there's a lot of people that are really on the beach in Hawaii or they're really, doing something cool. But this really showed two things, right? How they fake the image they project in their photos and so forth. And it also showed, which was super interesting, how you can buy fake followers, fake likes for
Oh my
cheap,
God,
for
yes.
super cheap. And it's a very lucrative business for the people that are selling that stuff. And then of course it was super scary to know how they do it, that they take little pieces of your information and my information and the other person across the street, and then they make a new person, and that's your bot. Because I do
Isn't it
remember back
crazy?
when I first was blogging, people would you would get a follower, but it would just be a bunch of letters and numbers, so you knew it was fake. Now it
Mm-hmm.
looks like a name, it looks like an email, or something on Gmail, and it's
Right.
harder to tell at face value if it's fake. And that just to me was, and that was part of this experiment, right? Like, can we buy this influence in a way, right, and get more people's attention, and then based on that, then you're getting real followers you wouldn't get. But it's kind of a racket and a scheme and the very premise of fake. You
Right.
these 2,000 people, or these 20,000, or these 200,000 people, it's not the real deal, you know.
I remember though for after watching that show, and I like Instagram just for inspiration and creativity and seeing beautiful images or whatever. And I was thinking, well, I don't really follow influencers. And then a friend of mine said, well, do you have anybody that you follow that says click or swipe up for more or something? I thought, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, then you follow influencers. And, one of them is like an older gal who's always talking about makeup and, skincare and how to stay younger looking. I'm like, okay, well, I can follow her. She seems authentic to me. But if I find somebody and I look at their feed, so before I follow anybody, I look at their feed. And if their feed is only pictures of them doing whatever, I think, no, that's a turnoff to me. So I'm
Yeah.
like, nope, not following you.
Yeah.
That you need to have something, at least in my opinion, just for me, I want something I'm going to gain from it.
Hmm.
What am I going to gain from spending my time following you?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I've noticed is, so someone will want to follow me, for example, and I'll go look before I say it's okay.
Right?
And they'll have like no posts, like they don't make any posts themselves, and they've got a whole bunch of people they are following, and I'm like, this is just somebody trying to build something on me that's not authentic.
Right.
And so I don't ever go down that path. But I mean, it takes, like, to manage all of that, it's kind of a lot of work if you really want to kind of keep it pure. So a lot of people don't maybe want to take the time. But let's talk about some of the things, the tricks. Like, there are tricks that, hey, if you're interested in being more fake famous, you can can borrow. But I mean, I'll share my favorite, and then maybe you could share a
Yep.
couple of yours. So they go to a backyard. So you got a photographer, you've got the guy who's kind of leading the experiment, and you've got this woman who's one of the people that is going to participate. And it's not even like a fancy, nice backyard per se. And in the corner, there's the blue plastic kiddie pool that they fill with water, and then they fill it with a bunch of rose petals. And she lays her head back. So all you see in the picture are these rose petals around her head, and it says she's at this like super high-end exclusive spa. I don't think so,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it shows you, with an eye and photography and garbage in the yard, that you can make it look like you're just about anywhere cool that that you're really not.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
one of my favorites, and it's funny because I was trying to do a return today to Home Depot because all of the crap that we collect doing home remodels. And one of them was a new toilet seat, just like a cover, like a toilet or a new seat,
Yeah.
toilet seat that people buy and then they hold up and they may have a drink and like a fake background. So it looks like, oh, I'm in first class
Yeah.
with this. It is a toilet seat.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I shouldn't return the toilet seat. Maybe I should just keep it. Oh my
Exactly.
God.
It's a lot cheaper, right? But than taking some first class trip.
Oh my
And and the
gosh.
guy too, he was like supposed to be in a super high end gym with a private trainer, and same thing. It's
Right.
like in a warehouse. But what happens is, people that really do offer those services then call these people up and say, come train with me for real, so that they can get the publicity for their business from this influencer. And so little by little, those things did start to happen to these people in the experiment. And
Right.
it was interesting to look at the three different paths that they took. And the one woman, she really kind of went with it, took all the free product, took all
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity. And because she was an aspiring actress, she did find that she got benefit, right, from casting calls and maybe getting called back. And so some financial gain actually coming from that. Because at first I was thinking, how do you pay your rent with tennis shoes or perfume, right?
Sunglasses. Yeah.
Product's
Right.
cool,
Good
but like,
question.
it doesn't pay the rent. But she started to kind of see that result. But why don't you tell them about the fashion designer and kind of his experience with this whole thing, and his, I guess aversion would be the ultimate reaction that
Well,
he had to this whole thing.
right. I think that it was interesting to watch the paths that they all sort of started to take. And he really discovered that for him personally, and he said, I would rather have 100 authentic, real people following me versus 10,000 bots. And I thought, wow, so he gets it in a way. But is he also in a way sabotaging his goal of making himself fake famous so he could create a clothing line that people would, want to purchase? I don't know. I really admired that about him, because he did recognize, this is just a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Well, and he really, it was, I think, a matter of like ethics or principle or whatever you want to say. And actually his true belief and confidence in what he was creating, right? And he wanted to be known for what he was actually making, and wanted to hear from the people that actually liked it. Like, he was going through his comments, and he could tell. He goes, oh, this is a fake comment. That's a fake comment, and that doesn't help him make better designs or even sell more, right? So, I thought it was a good example of, it's not always easy to make your dreams come true. You've got to sometimes make choices that, allow you to stick truer to who you are and what you believe, right? Your morals, or whatever you want to say, your compass. And that's how you sleep at night too. So I feel like this guy maybe made a hard choice, but at the end of the day, he probably slept better than some who have like ridden the wave of just the fake famous, and then,
and he seemed more, like he had more self-confidence too. Like he really believed in himself. He believed in what he was creating. As a thrift store shopper, the reduce, reuse, recycle thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, where's this guy? I would totally buy something that if he created it, because it's just a complete one of a kind, made from recycled products. I love that. I mean, that just is a win-win to me.
And that's who he wants to be his follower, right? Not a bunch of bots, because he doesn't need to even sell 1 million pieces, right? He needs to sell the right number of pieces to the people who actually want to buy them. And then there's just this, it just exposed the plain ugly side of things, where the third person, the real estate agent assistant, started racking up, I think he was up to like 30,000 or something followers. But he started to get trolled. And, those, you make yourself vulnerable, and you expose yourself to people's negative comments. And, when you hear some of the things that random, again, strangers will say to other people about how they look or what they're doing, it can be hard. And for this person, he had to shut it down, right? And I think he went all the way off for a bit, and then he went private, which,
he sort of self-sabotaged the whole process, but he didn't have a lot of self-confidence.
Right.
And he was looking at this as a way to gain more self-confidence. But we were talking before we started taping. Tell me the acronym that you had come up with or heard.
Yes. So a lot of us are familiar with the FOMO, fear of missing out, which again has to do a lot with what we're talking about. But the new one I heard was FOPO, which is fear of people's opinions. Right? So that we care so much about what people say. So when they start laying into things in the comment section, and it's just this easy numbers game. When the more people you have following you, especially the further and further removed they are, they're truly people that know you and like you or like your product, they're not likely to slam you in the comments. But when they're just random people, or fake people for that matter, the hurt, and I mean, it didn't, I don't think, dive quite into this, but I can only imagine the, anxiety and causing depression in some people. And when
oh yes, it's not healthy.
In the comparison kind of sense of things, what it causes people to do. And I was sharing, was with a friend today, and I asked her, I go, hey, do you have any kind of stories about, when you felt like you've had to fake it in the past? And, she shared with me that even before all of this digital platforms and social media, we might be having a bad time in our lives, and we would still, bust out that smile for the camera. And she had just finished her graduate program. And so that was a high point, but her life was in the can, or the gutter, as you might say. It was just like a bad time. But if you look at the the physical piece of evidence of that moment, that picture, she's got a big smile on her face. So she's like, I think this has always been an element where sometimes we portray to the outside world one story when our inner story is totally different. And it's just, a lot more people can see that story now. And it's a good reminder that what you see on social media is not always what you get, that people's day-to-day trials and tribulations, they don't always share. I mean, some people get down and dirty and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of people are just, showing up their very most primped and proper and lipstick on and hair done and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, we were trying to think of, we always like to anchor back to the 80s and how we faked it back then. And there wasn't really a way to fake it, except what you were just talking about with the pictures. But it just reminded me, as you're telling that story, we would take Christmas card pictures every single year so we could show this perfect family, right? Yeah. Well, behind the scenes, we're always like screaming, "Stop that, smile, don't do that." And we would say, "If you're not good, we're not going to ice cream after the pictures." We would like make all these threats. And so you'd see this picture, oh, the Walters family, so perfect. Yeah. Well, not so much. If only those, the photographs or videos, that everyone would really know what was going on behind the scenes. But
you said, the fear of missing out was real for you back then because of just some of the boundaries that your parents set for you as a teenager, right? What you were allowed to do and not do.
Right. I was only allowed to go out one weekend night, and I just, oh my God, I hated that. And I remember, back in the day when they had cruising in Petaluma, those of you that grew up in Sonoma County would remember that as well. And I was invited to go cruising with two girls. Well, we didn't drive then, so we were with somebody that could drive, and I don't remember who that was, but I couldn't go, so I didn't go. And I would have lied about where I was anyway, which is probably a good thing, because the next morning on the very cover of the Argus Courier, our little, town's paper, there was a picture of those two girls hanging out a car window, because the article was about cruising in downtown Petaluma. And I thought, oh dear God, my face would have been right there, and I'd have some splaining to do.
Exactly. Well, how funny is that? Like, when there was no social media, but hey, there were still newspaper photographers, and you never know when you might get your picture taken. Oh my God, that's too funny. I remember the same thing where, just wanting to do things, but not being allowed to, right? So that's where we really felt we were missing out. And then you couldn't find out till the next day, or maybe the next school day, what had actually happened to the people that did go out, because, you couldn't lay in your bed not out and look at what they were doing, which you and I have talked about, we probably think was a good thing for us.
Oh my God, without question. I just know for myself personally, my personality, it would have caused great anxiety for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that came up out of this fake famous movie is just this reminder how what you see isn't what you choose to see either, right? That they have these algorithms that are constantly changing, that are deciding what to show you and who to show your things to even. And we have to remind ourselves about that, right? Because it's easy to then stop having freedom of choice about what it is we see, because it's just like this. And if we're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and this whole kind of recommendation era that we live in, where there's always based on, you don't even have to click on a link. If you just pause long enough to read a caption or something, they know. And then all of a sudden you'll start getting the ads for it and that sort of thing. And so it narrows our choice and what we're exposed to that might help us make a better decision, or a wider, cast a wider, net on, our choices. And so that to me is super scary as well. And it's something for all of us to be mindful about. Are we mindlessly being consumers and buying things and following a thread that isn't even something we care about, just because some algorithm thinks, based on some of these other choices that we've made, that we should do that.
Right. Well, the movie that had talked about that too, which is another really good one that we would recommend people see, is Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Which is really eye-opening, because a lot of the people that sort of created these platforms are now on there saying, I wouldn't let my kids go on these platforms. I don't let my family, they're really controlling about what they allow their children to do, which I thought was very frightening. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay for everybody else, but it's not good for your family. So yes, and one, to just piggyback on that last thought, I had heard or read somewhere that it said never to click on a suggestion like YouTube thinks that you would like this video. Never click on it, because that you're just at that moment you're following exactly the road that they want you to be on, instead of you making the choices for yourself. So just a tip for our listeners.
Yeah. And so, we wanted to kind of talk about this today because in life too, in real life with real people, not in the digital world, people still kind of get hung up about the number of friends, and we just felt it came back to quality of friends and friendship versus quantity. You don't need, certainly don't need thousands of friends, because if I were to quiz you, you wouldn't even know what their birthdays were, but and even hundreds of friends. So those are maybe acquaintances. In fact, I was saying that people will refer to people as a Facebook friend as opposed to like an actual friend, which is kind of interesting in of itself. And what we have in our friendship, and what we want to encourage you to nurture and to make time for, are to enhance the quality of the friendships that you do have and that are meaningful to you. And when you do that, all the great benefits of friendship that we talked about on many of our past episodes of the podcast, can come to fruition for you. And if we worry less about how many friends we have and more about, are we really giving to the friendships that are there for us, or even as we're forming new friendships, right? Do we really give it the attention and the time to make it a quality friendship versus just one of a number?
Well, remember back a couple episodes, I can't remember which one now, but we had said that the number of quality or relationships that one person really can function with, the number was 150.
Yeah.
And that even to me feels like a lot.
Right.
I mean, but maybe you're thinking about maybe aunts or cousins, or, it's extended, but to have 150 friends that you really have a quality, close connection with, that seems pretty challenging to me.
Yeah. Well, and that was, I think, when we were talking about the circles. So as you come into those, really that kind of core group, it's really more like a handful, like you can count them on your hand, right? Where you really know the good, the bad, the ugly, the pain, the joy, all of those things, that those are shared with those people in that kind of closest circle. So we wanted to tell you today that we are grateful for those of you that have been listening, and we hope to attract more listeners, but we are not and will never purchase a listener or a follower. That we do not want to be famous, and we definitely don't want to be fake. We want to be our real selves and continue to tell you our fun stories and to help you value and nurture your friendships.
Very true. Authentic connections here only.